The Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities and the Non-Academic Staff Union of Educational and Associated Institutions are on an indefinite strike. And I'm joined on the show this evening by NASU President Makolo Hassan. Mr. Hassan, thank you for joining us on the program. I was asking earlier if these withheld 4-month salaries are the same ones the president granted a waiver for last year in October.
Yes, thank you very much, my brother. I was on your, I was in your station over the same matter. It's the same thing the president granted waiver some months ago. We are talking of the same thing.
We understand that at that time, Mr. President approved the grant of this waiver. It came with a mandatory requirement that both the Ministry of Education and Labor secure a document of understanding establishing indeed that this exceptional waiver will be the last one to be granted to ASU and other education sector units. Is that something you're aware of? Because you're on an indefinite strike on the same issues that an MOU, was signed on last year.
Of course, Memorandum of Understanding was signed not last year. It was 20th August 2022.
All right.
With the then Honorable Minister of Education, Malam Adamu, and it was agreed that this money will be paid alongside 50 billion naira for the earn allowance for all workers in the university system. It's not a new matter.
Well, I'm just wondering precisely what you make of that section of the Trade Dispute Act that gives employers a right not to pay for work not done. How does NASU justify, for instance, its demand for payment for work?
I hope you are turning the matter upside down.
Okay.
We were on strike in 2022, and the government said they will invoke no work, no pay. And when this government came on board, the president said he was going to give a waiver that 50% be paid. And NASU SANU were owed for 4 months. If 50% will be paid, it means 2 months. The question and the agitation now is, where is the 2 months that the president graciously approved? That's where we are.
Oh, I get you now. So ASU got 4 out of 8 months. And you are saying
yes,
that you are requiring 2 out of 4. Exactly.
Not we are saying. We asked for the 4,
okay,
but by the interpretation of waiver from Mr. President, it translates to 2 more because it is 50%.
It's the same thing we're saying. The fact that the money you're asking for now, according to law, you are not required to even have it because you did not work for it. You don't agree with that provision of the law?
Now, what are you saying now? Then if the president has given a waiver, then what, I don't know what you want to achieve. That the waiver of Mr. President or the directors will put aside?
Exactly the point I'm making.
I'm taking it differently.
I am not taking it differently. I am just worried that you are now on an indefinite strike for a waiver you got from Mr. President. I mean, have you gotten back to the...
I was thinking that once you come on a TV program, the essence is how to find a solution and lasting solution, and not to be on one particular side.
Well, but your union is now on indefinite strike. What efforts did you make to ensure that the presidential waiver was implemented prior to this time?
Well, if you are not new in your TV station, you will know. I started by saying that I was in your station some months back. We have met with the Minister of Education, from Malam Adamu down to Professor Tahir. We've met with the Minister of Labor. We have asked NLC to intervene. He made intervention, and that was even when the president gave the last approval and directed the Minister of Education and the Minister of Finance to make every effort to pay the 50%. So we've done everything we could. We issued our circular. We went on a protest, which is like a warning. So we've done everything.
I'm just curious. Hopefully, this strike wouldn't last for long. But will NASU also be asking to be paid for this ongoing strike?
Well, since you are a government, since your side is for the government, talk to the government. If the government paid today, tomorrow the strike will be called off.
I didn't get your response to that. Can you say that again?
I said your presentation is too clear, as if you are working for the government. You are not talking. You are not asking for solution.
I just ask you a simple question. That you are
currently
on
it's
another indefinite strike. Will NASU be asking to be paid for this ongoing strike?
If you are versed in labor law before now, anytime you embark on strike, you are expected to come to compromise with the employer. And majority of the time, we will have this clause, nobody will be victimized. When your salary is not paid, do you take that as victimization or what? And what we signed, that clause was there. So look at that aspect as well.
Labor laws. I quoted earlier for you, perhaps you skipped it, Section 43 of the Trade Dispute Act that gives employers the right not to pay for work not done. And I think that establishes it. But let us move this conversation forward a little bit. What are the main highlights of this 2022 Memorandum of Understanding that you signed with the federal government?
Well, I want to try as much as possible, and with the respect I have for your station, to go ahead again. I was in your station earlier before now, some months ago, and we said something led to the strike in which the salary of workers were withheld. And what were we talking? We're talking about the renegotiation of the 2009 agreement with the federal government. We're talking about the proper funding of state universities. Situation where state universities, some would stay for several months without salary because they were not properly funded. We're talking about the inconsistencies in IPP, IS, among other issues. And these were translated into Memorandum of Understanding in 20th August 2022, including the payment of earn allowances. And in the Memorandum of Understanding that was signed, it was so clear that 50 billion was earmarked for all the staff in the universities. The issue of state university will be looked into. The issue of IPPIS will as well be looked into. As we talk now, the government has directed that the IPPIS, the university staff, should go back to the old system of the gift mix. And that is where we are. So the current agitation now is, yes, we were on this strike, Memorandum of Understanding signed, nobody will be victimized signed, and the president said, okay, 2 months will be paid. The question now is that what is holding that 2 months? That is where we are.
A 3-week ultimatum was earlier given to the federal government. How did government react, and what form of conversations did you have with it, with federal government in this regard?
Yes, we gave an ultimatum, and we met with the Honorable Minister of Education, Professor Maman Tahir, and he told us that the president directed that his ministry and Minister of Finance should go and work on the 50% directive. And the Minister of Education said they have done everything that needed to be done, and that the Minister of State for Education took all that they worked to the Ministry of Finance and submitted it for payment. That as far as they are concerned, they have done their part, and what they expected now is for our members to begin to see a lot. And that is month back now, and nothing is done.
Have you heard from government since the commencement of this indefinite strike?
Oh, yes, we have, and we have a meeting slated to hold soon within the week.
What then is your next line of action, after withdrawing your service?
Yes, if it's not our own next line of action, We are now on indefinite strike that could last for a day, that could last for 2 days, that could last for 1 week, depending on the body language of the government and the proactiveness of the government. So if we meet to see what is on the table for us. But as far as we know, this is not supposed to linger on. It's not a bigger problem. If it is 2 months that the government has approved and we are set to take that 2 months, question now is that who is holding up that 2 months?
I had the NASU president on the show, I think it was last month, and we were discussing these issues. After 15 years and 4 presidents, I was asking ASU if it thinks the time is ripe to rethink the approach of getting what it wants from the federal government. And I want to ask you the same question. Do you think that strikes really have worked in getting government to fulfill its side of of the deal? Are there alternatives we can explore without interrupting academic process?
Well, of course, strike is the last resort. And what every credible union will do is to embrace dialogue. That is the first step. That is what NASU and SANU have done over the months. We have gone into dialogue. We've gone into giving a warning. We've gone into protest. We've done all manner of things, and all that are required of us to do, we have done. And when nothing works, the last result will be strike. And that is where we are now. Once you are pushed to the wall, there is nothing more to do. Then what you do is strike. Strike is the last resort.
I get that precisely. The question really is whether strike has actually gotten unions what they want. You know, it begins with negotiations, you give ultimatums, and then you go on strike. But what we've seen over the years, hopefully you agree with me, is that government calls for another meeting, and then you suspend the strike, and then we come back next year to start the full cycle again.
Then who do you blame in this situation? When you call a union to a meeting during strike, an agreement reached, and you reneged, then who do you blame? You blame the government for promising and signing an agreement and not doing anything on that agreement, and not the union.
Well, I am not in the blaming game. You know, we kickstarted this conversation, you thinking that I was speaking for government, but I'm also a Nigerian like you who have been through the university system, who went through the struggle of spending so long a time. As an ivory tower, I was thinking that stakeholders would also sit down to come up with solutions, perhaps lobby the National Assembly to make laws that make it impossible for government, you know, to fail on agreements that it signs. You don't think it's about time now that we start addressing this issue completely differently? You know, they say if you do the same thing the same way, you don't necessarily get a different result.
Well, I want to believe that if you have a system that wants things to work well, there will be no room for agitations. Over this same matter we are talking about now, the House Committee on Tertiary Education has intervened over the same payment, and they told us that a resolution was passed and sent to the federal government. So I don't know, we've gone round. If you talk of lobbying, of course, if they called us, we respected them, we went there, and they did what they needed to do, and they told us that no trouble, things is settled. So I don't know what else we needed to do.
On this story now, we're capturing SANU and NASU. And I'm wondering, is it possible that all the associations within the university system come together and fight from the same front? You know, there have been allegations in the past that government has favored ASU above unions like SANU. You don't think that this division is also causing some sort of delay in getting what you want from government?
Well, every union have their constitutions. Every union has their rules. where there are issues that are of common interest and the union feel it is important for us to come together, it's not a problem. Like SANU and NASU felt that we have everything in common. And so there is no point of NASU going their way, SANU going their way. And that is why we are into the marriage of this convenient, the marriage of Jack. So if other unions feel, yes, it is good, we can all come together, it's okay. Apart from part of allowances, all of us are talking of the proper funding. We are talking about equipment. We are talking about better system for the university education. So there is nothing personal to any particular union.
Absolutely. So you're saying if the Minister of Finance processes the 2-month salary from 2022, NASU will call off the strike?
Oh, yes. The pain of this is we are so worried that if Mr. President will give a directive and somebody will say, I will do it, which we don't know now, we don't know what is happening now, then it spells danger for the university system and for the union. And that is why it is important. If this money is paid, like I tell you, overnight, our members are calling us, here, alert has come. Why do we have to continue with the strike? Because the aim is, where's the money?
NASU President Makolu Hassan, thank you for talking to us on the program this evening.
Thank you, thank you.
Well, we'll continue to have that difficult conversation. I like to think that if you do the same thing over and over, you're not likely going to get the different results. Stakeholders have to come together and begin to create alternative means of getting government to fulfill its promises. That's our show today. I am Nifemi Oguntoye. See you again at 7 p.m.